Some people only come back when the life they abandoned finally becomes beautiful. Ryan Bennett stood at the far end of the ballroom as if 3 years had been nothing more than a long weekend. Maya saw him between two raised champagne glasses. For one dangerous second, the room disappeared. Not the photographers beneath the amber chandeliers. Not the soft jazz drifting above hundreds of conversations. Not the 20-foot letters glowing behind the stage. Aster House. Her name was printed beneath them. Maya Bennett, founder. She had imagined this night during mornings when her bank account was nearly empty, during nights when sawdust covered her kitchen floor, during the year when every door seemed to close at once. She had imagined applause. She had never imagined him. Ryan looked older. Sharper around the jaw. Expensive charcoal suit. The same controlled posture that once made strangers trust him immediately. Then his eyes found hers. And he smiled. Maya's fingers tightened around the stem of her glass. 3 years earlier, she would have crossed any room for that smile. Tonight, she stayed exactly where she was. Maya. Daniel Cross stood beside her, holding a folder from the evening's final presentation. He followed her gaze but asked nothing. "I'm fine," she said. Across the ballroom, Ryan began walking toward her. Slowly. People moved aside without knowing they were making room for a ghost. "Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country below, and if you believe dignity is the strongest revenge, hit like and subscribe." Now, back to her story. Ryan stopped a few feet away. For a moment, neither spoke. His gaze moved over her black satin dress, the journalists waiting near the stage, then the enormous Aster House emblem glowing behind her. Something shifted in his expression. Pride, perhaps. Or disbelief. "You actually did it," he said. The words landed more softly than Maya expected. No apology. No hello. Just surprise. As though success had been a rumor she had somehow managed to make real. Maya looked at him and suddenly remembered another room. White fluorescent lights. A vending machine humming in an empty hospital corridor. Rain crawling down dark windows. Her mother's medical paperwork trembling between her fingers. And Ryan standing in front of her with his coat already buttoned. That had been the hardest year of Maya's life. Her mother was waiting for surgery. Maya had lost her job 12 days earlier. Their savings were disappearing into bills faster than she could calculate them. She had been sleeping 4 hours a night and pretending she wasn't afraid. That evening, when Ryan appeared at the hospital, relief had rushed through her so quickly it almost hurt. She thought he had come to take her home. Instead, he sat beside her. "Maya," he'd said quietly, "I accepted New York." She blinked. They had discussed the offer. They had discussed moving. They had discussed surviving this together. "When do we leave?" Ryan stared at the floor. "We don't." The hospital seemed to become very still. Maya watched his hands. No wedding ring. "I can't keep waiting for our life to start," he whispered. She remembered looking down at the folder on her lap. Hospital bills on top. Underneath them, almost hidden, were sketches for a furniture company she still dreamed of building. Aster House. Ryan stood. "I'm sorry." Then he walked toward the elevator. Maya never chased him. Back in the ballroom, applause suddenly erupted as the host called her name. Ryan glanced toward the stage. Maya set down her champagne. "Excuse me," she said. And walked past the man who had once left her behind. This time, the entire room was waiting for her. 3 years earlier, the elevator doors closed on Ryan before Maya allowed herself to breathe. She remained beneath the hospital's fluorescent lights, staring at the silver doors as though they might open again. They didn't. On her lap sat everything that was falling apart at once. Her mother's surgery estimate. A termination letter from the marketing firm where Maya had worked for 4 years. And beneath both, folded carefully at the corners, 12 hand-drawn sketches bearing the same name. Aster House. It was the dream she kept postponing because there was always something more practical to save first. Their rent. Ryan's graduate school expenses. His interview trips. The tailored navy suit he needed when a consulting firm finally offered him the position that changed their lives. Maya remembered standing in a department store fitting room 3 years earlier, removing a pair of shoes she wanted because Ryan's suit cost $80 more than they had planned. "You'll get them next month," he'd promised. She smiled. Next month became next year. It hadn't mattered then. She loved him. When Ryan studied past midnight, Maya left coffee beside his laptop without interrupting. When he doubted himself before interviews, she sat cross-legged on their bed and practiced questions with him until he stopped stumbling over the answers. When his first major promotion arrived, Maya bought a small chocolate cake. The bakery misspelled congratulations. They laughed until midnight. Those were the memories that made the hospital corridor hurt. Ryan hadn't always been cruel. That would have made leaving easier. He had simply become successful faster than she did. And slowly, almost politely, he began treating her unfinished dream like evidence that she was standing still. "What exactly is Aster House supposed to be?" he'd asked one evening. Maya was cutting fabric samples across their dining table. "Furniture that feels like somewhere you can breathe." Ryan loosened his tie. "That's not a business model. It's an idea. You've had the idea for 2 years." His voice wasn't loud. That was what stayed with her. The disappointment sounded reasonable. Maya gathered the fabric into a neat pile. "I helped you when yours was only an idea." Ryan said nothing. The refrigerator hummed between them. Months later, when his New York offer arrived, he started speaking about the future in singular terms. "My office. My team. My apartment allowance." Maya noticed. She simply kept hoping the word "our" would return. It never did. Now, inside the hospital corridor, Maya lifted the sketches from beneath the medical paperwork. One page showed a curved walnut chair with a wide back and soft linen upholstery. Prototype 1. Ryan had once called it beautiful. Later, he'd called it impractical. Finally, he'd stopped asking about it. Maya ran her thumb across the pencil lines. Her phone vibrated. Past due. Then another notification. Her mother's insurance claim required additional documentation. Maya closed her eyes. For the first time that night, tears came. Not dramatically. No sobbing. Just 2 quiet lines down her cheeks while nurses passed without noticing. At 25, Maya had no job, almost no savings, a mother waiting for surgery, and a husband who had decided her hardest season was his exit. She wiped her face with the sleeve of her coat. Then she noticed something. Her wedding ring. She turned it once around her finger. The diamond caught the hospital light. For a moment, she imagined selling it. Instead, Maya removed it slowly and placed it inside the smallest pocket of her handbag. Not because she expected Ryan to return. Because she refused to make another decision tonight based on losing him. She looked down at Aster House. Everything else could wait until morning. Her marriage had ended. Her dream had not. And somewhere beneath the fear, something inside Maya had finally stopped asking permission to survive. By sunrise, Maya understood that heartbreak was expensive. Not in the poetic way people talked about over wine. Literally expensive. The hospital deposit was due Friday. Her severance would barely cover rent. The first production payment for Aster House was due in 9 days, and the savings she had spent 2 years building now belonged to her mother's surgery. Maya sat at the tiny kitchen table with a calculator, 3 envelopes, and coffee she had forgotten to drink. Every number ended the same way. Not enough. Across the apartment, Ryan's side of the closet stood half empty. He had returned once while Maya was at the hospital. His suits were gone. His shoes were gone. Even the framed photograph from their trip to Seattle had disappeared from the dresser. But on the dining table, beneath a stack of unopened mail, Ryan had left something behind. Her prototype drawings. Maya stared at them. Aster House had been scheduled to produce its first physical sample that month. Walnut frame. Cream linen. Hand-finished arms. She had already negotiated with a small workshop outside Chicago. All she needed was the deposit. The money no longer existed. Her phone rang. "Ms. Bennett," the workshop owner said. "I need to know whether we're moving forward." Maya looked toward the hospital paperwork. Her answer came quietly. "Not yet." She heard disappointment in the silence. "We can't hold the production slot much longer." "I understand." After the call ended, Maya remained still for several minutes. Then she opened her banking app. She moved every dollar from the Aster House account toward her mother's medical expenses. The balance dropped to almost nothing. There it was. 2 years of saving reduced to 3 digits. Maya closed the laptop. For the first time since Ryan left, she wondered whether he had been right. Maybe Aster House was only an idea. Maybe dreams belonged to people whose mothers weren't sick. People with savings. People whose husbands didn't disappear when life became inconvenient. Her eyes moved toward the trash can. She gathered the sketches. 1 page. Then another. Her fingers stopped at prototype 1. She couldn't do it. That afternoon, Maya drove her old Honda to the hospital. The engine rattled at red lights, and the passenger window only opened halfway. Her mother was awake when Maya entered. "You look tired," she whispered. "So do you." "That's because I'm charming." Maya laughed despite herself. Her mother reached for her hand and noticed the missing wedding ring. She didn't ask where Ryan was. Mothers sometimes knew which questions would break their daughters. Instead, she squeezed Maya's fingers. "What are you going to do?" Maya looked toward the window. "I don't know." That evening, she sat alone in the hospital parking garage. The Honda waited beneath a flickering fluorescent tube. Maya remembered buying it at 19. She remembered driving Ryan to graduate classes when his car died. She remembered transporting fabric samples in the back seat and dreaming about the day she would deliver her first finished chair. Then she saw the dealership advertisement across the street. "We buy used cars." Maya stared at it for a long time. 20 minutes later, she walked inside. The offer wasn't generous. But it was enough. Enough for groceries. Enough for transportation for several weeks. Enough for 1 prototype deposit. The salesman slid the paperwork toward her. Maya signed. She walked home carrying everything important in 1 canvas bag. Inside were hospital documents, her laptop, the wedding ring she still hadn't sold, and 12 drawings labeled Aster House. Ryan had left because he believed their life was going nowhere. Maya had just sold the last thing capable of taking her anywhere. And somehow, beneath the cold Chicago evening, she had never felt more certain about where she was going. The first person who paid Maya for Aster House did not know he was buying her a reason to keep going. 6 weeks after selling the Honda, Maya was working mornings at a small cafe near Wicker Park. By 7, the room smelled of espresso and toasted bread. By noon, her feet hurt. By midnight, she was usually sitting on the floor of her apartment with fabric samples around her knees, answering freelance emails while sanding pieces of walnut by hand. The prototype had finally arrived. It wasn't perfect. One arm curved slightly higher than the other. The linen seam along the back needed tightening. The wood stain looked warmer than Maya had imagined beneath artificial light. She loved it anyway. There was nowhere to keep it in her apartment, so the cafe owner allowed her to place it beside a brick wall near the back window. Until somebody complains, he warned. Nobody complained. People sat in it. They drank coffee in it. One woman fell asleep in it for 20 minutes. Maya noticed everything. She kept a notebook beneath the counter and wrote down which parts people touched first, how they shifted their weight, where their shoulders rested. Then, on a gray Tuesday morning, a man in a camel coat walked into the cafe. His name was Thomas Avery. Maya knew only because his credit card said so. He ordered black coffee, took a phone call, then sat in her chair. 10 minutes later, he stood and examined it. Who made this? Maya stopped wiping the counter. I designed it. Thomas looked at her apron. Then at the chair. You. Maya had learned that question could mean many things. She simply nodded. Thomas ran his hand along the walnut frame. How much? For a second, Maya thought she had misunderstood. The chair. The chair. She swallowed. It's a prototype. Can you make 6? 6. Maya looked toward the espresso machine as steam hissed into the silence. I can. Thomas removed a business card from his wallet. He owned a small boutique hotel near Lake Michigan. They were renovating 6 suites and wanted furniture that didn't look as if it had come from a catalog. Send me a price by tomorrow. He left. Maya remained behind the counter holding the card. That night, she calculated everything 3 times. Wood. Fabric. Labor. Delivery. Taxes. She nearly lowered the price twice because fear kept whispering that asking for too much would make him disappear. Instead, Maya typed the number her work was actually worth. She pressed send. At 8:14 the next morning, Thomas replied. Approved. Deposit attached. Maya stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Then she walked into the cafe storage room, closed the door, and sat on an overturned milk crate. Her hands covered her face. The tears came silently. Months earlier, Ryan had called Aster House her little furniture idea. Now someone who knew nothing about her marriage, her hospital bills, or the nights she had gone to bed hungry had looked at the same idea and asked one simple question. How much? No sympathy. No rescue. A transaction. For the first time, the world had assigned value to something Maya created. She wiped her cheeks and returned to work. That evening, she opened her apartment door and found the prototype glowing beneath the streetlight coming through the window. Maya placed Thomas's business card on the seat. 6 chairs. It wasn't an empire. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't even enough money to stop worrying about next month's rent. But it was proof. And sometimes, when a woman has lost almost everything, proof is more valuable than hope. Daniel Cross entered Maya's life with a contract she refused to sign. By the time Aster House was 18 months old, Maya no longer worked behind the cafe counter. She had a narrow studio above a printing shop, 3 local craftsmen on contract, and enough orders to keep her awake for reasons that finally felt worth losing sleep over. Her mother's health had stabilized. The hospital bills were shrinking. Slowly. Nothing in Maya's life had become easy. It had simply become hers. That autumn, Aster House earned a small exhibition space at the Chicago Design Showcase. Maya arrived carrying fabric samples in one hand and repairing a loose display label with the other. Around her, established brands occupied enormous booths beneath white lights. Her space held 4 chairs, 1 table, and a handwritten card explaining why comfort should feel like dignity. Daniel stopped in front of that card. He was 34, tall, composed, wearing a dark suit without a tie. He read every word before touching anything. Then he sat in prototype 1. Maya watched from across the booth. Most investors she had met asked about revenue first. Daniel looked at the chair. Why is the back wider here? So people don't have to sit perfectly to feel supported. He glanced up. That's intentional. Everything is. A faint smile appeared. Good answer. He introduced himself as a partner at Cross Meridian Capital. Maya recognized the name. Her stomach tightened. Daniel spent 20 minutes asking questions. Not about her husband. Not about who had financed her. Not about whether someone had helped her get started. He asked about manufacturing capacity, customer retention, margins, lead times. Questions that treated Aster House like a company rather than an inspirational story. 2 weeks later, his firm sent an investment offer. It was more money than Maya had ever seen attached to her name. She read the document twice. Then a third time. The capital could give her a larger workshop. Employees. National distribution. Breathing room. But buried inside the agreement was a clause giving Cross Meridian enough control to override major creative decisions. Maya stared at it until midnight. 3 years earlier, she might have convinced herself that security was worth surrendering something. She had already learned what that cost. The next morning, she entered Daniel's office carrying the unsigned contract. I can't accept this. Daniel leaned back. Why? You want too much control. We're taking the financial risk. And I'm taking the risk of becoming an employee inside my own dream. Silence. Maya expected persuasion. Instead, Daniel closed the folder. Then don't sign it. She blinked. That's it. That's it. He stood and offered his hand. I'd rather lose a deal than watch a founder agree to one she already resents. Maya shook his hand. Outside, winter air struck her face. She had just walked away from enough money to change her life. Her hands trembled all the way to the train. 6 months passed. Aster House grew without Daniel's money. Not quickly. But honestly. Then one Tuesday morning, Maya found him waiting outside her studio holding 2 coffees and another folder. She opened the new agreement. The control clause was gone. Her ownership remained protected. You changed the terms, she said. You proved I underestimated you. Maya looked at him. Daniel didn't smile like a man expecting gratitude. He simply waited. For years, Maya had mistaken love for sacrifice and support for permission. Daniel offered neither. He offered respect. And when Maya finally signed her name, it wasn't because a powerful man had arrived to save her. It was because, for the first time, one had understood that standing beside her required leaving her strength untouched. Ryan had not been invited by Maya. That was the first thing she learned when she saw his name on the guest list. The ballroom had changed in the 20 minutes since he first appeared. More cameras crowded the stage now. Waiters moved between clusters of investors and designers carrying silver trays. Beyond the glass walls, Chicago glittered beneath the night sky. Maya stood near the backstage corridor while her assistant, Lauren, scrolled through the digital registration list. Ryan Bennett, Lauren said. Guest credential through Halston commercial. Maya's expression remained still. Halston. They're bidding on the national supply contract. For a moment, Maya heard nothing except the muted applause from the ballroom. Ryan worked for Halston Commercial, the company competing for one of Aster House's largest contracts. Of course. 3 years ago, Ryan had left for New York because he believed Maya's life wasn't moving fast enough. Tonight, he had entered her building because his company wanted her business. Maya looked through the open doorway. Ryan was speaking with 2 executives near the bar. His posture was confident, but his eyes kept returning to her. Lauren lowered her voice. Do you want me to remove them from consideration? Maya turned. Why would I? Lauren hesitated. I thought. Does Halston meet the requirements? Yes. Then procurement evaluates them like everyone else. No anger entered Maya's voice. That was precisely why Lauren nodded without another question. Same scorecard. Same everything. Maya walked away. She could have ended Ryan's bid with one sentence. 3 years earlier, she might have imagined how satisfying that would feel. But revenge required attention. And Maya had spent too much of her life building something valuable to waste attention destroying someone else. The presentations began the following morning. 5 companies. 40 minutes each. Ryan entered the conference room with 3 Halston executives at 10:30. He stopped when he saw Maya seated at the head of the table. Not beside Daniel. Not behind him. At the head. A brass nameplate rested before her. Maya Bennett, founder and CEO. Ryan's colleague opened the presentation. Numbers appeared across the screen. Warehousing capacity. National distribution. Cost projections. Maya asked precise questions and took notes. She never mentioned their marriage. Ryan barely spoke until the final slide. Then one executive smiled toward Maya. Ryan actually told us he knew you years ago. The room shifted. Ryan's jaw tightened. Maya closed her pen. We were married. Silence. No embarrassment touched her face. No explanation followed. Daniel, seated 2 chairs away, simply turned another page of the proposal. The executive cleared his throat. I see. Maya looked at Ryan. For this room, Mr. Bennett represents Halston. That's all procurement needs to consider. Something in Ryan's expression changed. He had expected anger. Perhaps resentment. Maybe even the satisfaction of watching him become uncomfortable. Instead, Maya gave him fairness. And somehow, fairness made the distance between them feel larger. After the presentation, the executives filed into the hallway. Ryan remained behind. Maya. She gathered her notes. You didn't know I worked for Halston. No. And you're still considering us? If your proposal is the best. Ryan studied her as though trying to find the woman who once waited beside hospital windows for him to come back. He couldn't. I didn't come only for the contract, he said. Maya's hand stopped over the folder. Outside, the elevator chimed. Ryan stepped closer. I came because I knew this was yours. Maya slowly lifted her eyes. 3 years ago, he had walked away because he couldn't wait for her dream to become real. Now that it had, Ryan Bennett had crossed hundreds of miles to stand inside it. Ryan waited until the ballroom had emptied enough for the city to become visible again. He found Maya on the rooftop terrace. Chicago stretched beneath her in cold ribbons of light, traffic moving far below like veins of gold. The music from inside reached them only as a distant pulse through the glass. Maya stood beside the railing, alone. Ryan approached slowly. "I've imagined this conversation 100 times," he said. She didn't turn. "That sounds exhausting." A small breath escaped him. Almost a laugh. It died quickly. "I deserve that." Maya looked at him then. "No, Ryan. You keep expecting me to punish you." His face tightened. "I'm not." "You are." The wind lifted a strand of her hair. "Because punishment would mean I'm still carrying what you did." Ryan lowered his eyes. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then he stepped toward the railing. "I saw the first article about Aster House 8 months ago." Maya remained still. "I recognized the chair. Prototype 1. Of course he had. It had once sat unfinished beneath their apartment window while Ryan complained about sawdust on the floor. "I started reading everything after that," he continued. "The hotels. The expansion. Daniel's investment. There it was. Daniel." Maya noticed how carefully Ryan said his name. "I kept thinking about that apartment," Ryan said. "About those drawings on the table. And how certain I was." Maya's eyes narrowed slightly. "Certain about what?" "That we were failing." The word hung between them. Ryan rubbed his hands against the cold. New York felt like a door opening. "Your mother was sick. You'd lost your job. We were drowning in bills, and every time I came home there were more sketches, more plans, more things that might happen someday." Maya said nothing. "I was scared." She finally turned fully toward him. Ryan's voice softened. "Maybe I left because I was afraid we'd never become anything." The city seemed to quiet beneath them. Maya studied the man she had once loved enough to build her schedule around. 3 years ago, those words would have destroyed her. Tonight, they only clarified something. "No, Ryan." He looked up. "You weren't afraid we'd never become anything." She stepped closer, her voice calm. "You were afraid I wouldn't." Ryan froze. Maya continued before he could answer. "You already had your offer. Your salary. Your new office. You knew where your life was going. Maya. And mine embarrassed you because it was still becoming." His jaw tightened. "I never said you embarrassed me. You didn't have to." Silence. Through the glass doors, applause suddenly rose from inside. Ryan looked toward it, then back at her. "I was wrong." Maya's expression didn't change. "I know." The answer struck harder than anger would have. Ryan swallowed. "I thought maybe, if there was still something between us." "There is." Hope moved across his face too quickly. Maya watched it appear. Then she finished. "History." Ryan's shoulders lowered. Inside, Daniel appeared briefly near the doors but stopped when he saw them. He didn't interrupt. He simply turned back toward the ballroom. Ryan noticed. "Are you with him?" Maya almost smiled. 3 years ago, Ryan had defined her future by whether he stayed. Now he was trying to understand it by asking whether another man had replaced him. "My life isn't a seat someone has to fill." The terrace doors opened. "Maya," Lauren called softly. "They're ready for you." Maya nodded. Ryan looked toward the ballroom. "For what?" Maya walked past him. "The reason tonight exists." And for the first time, Ryan understood that Aster House might contain a part of Maya's story he had never known. The dream Ryan thought was about furniture had never really been about furniture. When Maya stepped onto the stage, the ballroom softened into silence. Behind her, the Aster House logo glowed across a wall of warm amber light. Hundreds of faces turned toward her, designers, investors, journalists, employees, people who had known the company only after it became successful. Ryan stood near the back. Daniel remained beside the stage. Maya rested both hands on the podium. 3 years ago, she began, I spent more nights in a hospital than I did in my own home. Ryan's expression changed. Maya didn't look at him. My mother was waiting for surgery. I had lost my job. And there were nights when I sat beneath fluorescent lights wondering how many things a person could lose before she stopped recognizing her own life. The room became completely still. A photograph appeared behind her. Not a glamorous campaign. A hospital waiting room. Gray walls. Plastic tables. A row of stiff chairs beneath unforgiving lights. Maya remembered sleeping in one of them with her coat folded beneath her head. She remembered waking with pain between her shoulders. She remembered frightened families sitting beside vending machines at 2 in the morning because there was nowhere softer to go. That was where Aster House truly began. Ryan stared at the screen. For years, he had believed Maya's sketches were about ambition. He had never understood they were also about survival. Maya clicked to the next image. Prototype 1 appeared. The curved walnut chair. The same chair Ryan once saw unfinished beside their apartment window. This was designed around one question, Maya said. What would it feel like to create a place where someone exhausted didn't have to pretend they were comfortable? The screen changed again. Aster House Foundation. A murmur moved through the ballroom. Maya announced that a portion of the company's profits would fund redesigned recovery and family spaces in hospitals across underserved communities, beginning with the hospital where her mother had been treated. Furniture. Lighting. Rest areas. Private spaces for families waiting through the longest nights of their lives. No one applauded immediately. The meaning reached them first. Then the room rose. The sound came like thunder. Ryan didn't move. He looked around at hundreds of people standing for the dream he had once dismissed because it hadn't become profitable quickly enough. Daniel stepped onto the stage only after the applause softened. He took the microphone. There's one detail Maya won't tell you herself. She glanced at him. When Cross Meridian first approached Aster House, Maya rejected our investment. Soft laughter moved through the audience. Daniel smiled. She told us our money wasn't worth losing control of her company. More applause. Ryan's eyes lowered. Daniel turned toward Maya. Today, she remains Aster House's founder, creative director, and majority owner. He offered her the microphone back. Nothing more. No claim over her success. No suggestion that he had created it. Ryan finally understood. Daniel had not rescued Maya. No wealthy man had appeared after Ryan left and built a better life for her. Maya had built it herself. Daniel had simply been wise enough not to stand in her way. From the stage, Maya's eyes briefly found Ryan's. There was no triumph in them. That hurt more. Because she wasn't showing him what he had lost. She was showing the world what she had found. Herself. Ryan had returned because Maya's dream had finally come true. Only now did he understand the cruelest part. The dream had survived the year he abandoned her. And somewhere along the way, it had grown so large that he was no longer necessary to its ending. By midnight, the applause was gone. The photographers had packed their cameras. Champagne glasses sat half-empty on linen tables, and the last guests disappeared through the revolving doors beneath the glowing Aster House sign. Maya was walking toward the gallery when she saw Ryan waiting beside the first chair she had ever designed. Prototype 1. It now stood behind glass. A small brass plaque beneath it read, Aster House, original prototype. Ryan stared at the worn walnut arm. I remember this. Maya stopped beside him. You hated the stain. A faint smile touched his face. I said it looked unfinished. It was. No. Ryan looked at her. I think I was. Maya said nothing. The building was quiet enough to hear the ventilation humming above them. Ryan slipped his hands into his pockets. I kept thinking tonight would make this easier. What? Saying what I came here to say. He glanced at the chair again. I want another chance. There it was. 3 years too late. Maya felt no rush of satisfaction. Only stillness. Ryan stepped closer. I know I don't deserve one. But I keep thinking about who we were before everything became difficult. Maya's eyes rested on prototype 1. I remember who we were. I loved you. I know. I still do. Maya slowly turned toward him. And I don't hate you, Ryan. Hope flickered across his face. She continued gently. But I don't need the life I once begged you to stay in. His eyes dropped. For several seconds, neither moved. Then Maya touched the glass surrounding the chair. You were right about one thing. Ryan looked up. My old life had to end before this one could begin. Is there really nothing left for us? Maya studied him. There had been a time when that question would have been everything. Now it was simply a question. There is. Ryan waited. Gratitude. Confusion crossed his face. Maya smiled, but there was no cruelty in it. You leaving taught me who stayed. She thought of her mother squeezing her hand without asking where Ryan had gone. Thomas Avery buying 6 chairs without knowing he was buying hope. The craftsman who trusted orders from a woman working out of a tiny studio. Daniel returning with a fairer contract instead of asking her to become smaller. And Maya herself. The woman who stayed when everyone else had permission to leave. Ryan's eyes shone beneath the gallery lights. I'm sorry. This time, Maya believed him. But forgiveness was not an invitation. I know. She walked toward the entrance. Ryan remained beside prototype 1. Outside, Chicago was quiet beneath a thin midnight rain. Daniel stood near a waiting car, speaking on his phone. When he noticed Maya, he ended the call. Ready? Maya looked back through the glass. Ryan was still inside. For a moment, their reflections overlapped beneath the lights. Then Maya stepped forward, and his disappeared behind her. Above the entrance, her name glowed beneath the company she had once sketched on hospital paperwork. Aster House. Maya Bennett, founder. Daniel opened the car door. Maya smiled. Not because another man was waiting. Because she no longer needed anyone to prove she had arrived. Behind her was the man who had left during her hardest year. Ahead was the life she had built anyway. She didn't win him back. She won herself.